Welcome to Listen and Learn English. I have prepared a story that is clear and simple so you can follow easily. I invite you to watch this video until the end, listen carefully, and practice speaking with me. Each sentence is short and meaningful, designed to help you understand step by step. As you listen, try to imagine the story in your mind. If some words or sentences are difficult, do not worry. Pay attention and repeat them quietly. At the end, if there are still parts you do not understand, I recommend practicing again. If you find this video easy, write easy in the comments. If it is difficult, write hard. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Stayed Silent. I sat in the classroom and stayed quiet. My heart beat fast when the teacher asked questions. I often knew the answer. The words were in my mind, but I did not speak. Fear stopped me. I was afraid of mistakes. I was afraid of laughter. So I looked down and said nothing. Every day felt the same. I listened carefully. I understood many things. Inside my mind, I spoke clearly. Outside, I stayed silent. Slowly, silence became normal for me. Teachers stopped asking me questions. Classmates did not expect me to talk. I felt invisible. I was there, but no one noticed me. Sometimes I wanted to raise my hand. I almost did. Then fear came again. I thought about saying the wrong word. I thought about people laughing. My hand stayed down. Someone else answered. I told myself it was better this way. Quiet felt safe. Quiet meant no mistakes. But silence was also painful. I watched other students speak freely. They made mistakes, but they continued talking. They smiled and tried again. I did not understand how they were so brave. I knew the problem was not knowledge. The problem was my fear. After school, I thought about these moments again. I imagined speaking with confidence. I imagined using my voice. But the next day, everything repeated. I stayed quiet again. My voice felt locked inside me. Deep inside, I started to wonder when this fear first began and why it became so strong in my life. Chapter 2. The Moment That Changed Everything. I remember that day very clearly. The teacher called my name. She asked me to stand and speak in front of the class. My heart started to beat fast. My hands felt cold. I knew the answer, but my mind became empty. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. The room was very quiet. Everyone looked at me. The silence felt long and heavy. I wanted the moment to end. Then someone laughed. It was a small laugh, but I heard it clearly. Another student laughed too. My face became hot. I felt shame. I felt small. I wanted to sit down and disappear. The teacher told me to relax and try again, but I could not speak. Fear was stronger than my voice. After a few seconds, she told me to sit down. My legs felt weak as I returned to my seat. For the rest of the class, I said nothing. I kept my eyes on my book. I did not want anyone to look at me again. Inside, I felt broken. I felt that I failed. After school, I thought about that moment again and again. The laughter stayed in my mind. Each time I remembered it, my confidence became smaller. I started to believe something was wrong with me. That day changed how I saw myself. I decided it was safer not to try. Speaking felt dangerous. Silence felt safe. Slowly, I stopped raising my hand. I stopped trying to speak at all. Fear began to guide my choices from that moment forward. Chapter 3. Living Behind Fear. After that day, I changed. I spoke less and listened more. In class, I sat quietly and avoided attention. Even when I knew the answer, I kept my hand down. Silence felt safer than trying again. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Nothing outside changed, but something inside me did. My fear grew slowly. It followed me everywhere. Before speaking, I always imagined people laughing, so I chose not to speak at all. Sometimes teachers asked simple questions. I knew the answers. The words were clear in my mind, but my voice stayed hidden. I told myself it was better this way. I said I did not need to speak. Still, deep inside, I felt unhappy. I watched other students talk easily. They made mistakes, but they laughed and continued. I wondered why I could not do the same. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to speak without fear, but I did not know how to start. Opportunities came and passed. Group discussions, presentations, small conversations after class. Each time I stayed quiet. Later, I felt regret. I thought about what I could have said. The words always came too late. At home, I felt frustrated. I wanted to change, but I felt stuck. The more I avoided speaking, the harder it became. My confidence became smaller each day. I began to believe that this was just who I was. Still, a small part of me did not give up. I wanted something different. I wanted to feel free when I spoke. I did not know it yet, but a small moment was coming. A simple moment that would begin to change how I saw fear. Chapter 4. A Small Step Forward. One evening, I sat alone in my room. The house was quiet. I remembered how tired I felt of being afraid. I did not want to stay silent forever. So I tried something small. I spoke one simple sentence out loud. My voice sounded strange to me, but nothing bad happened. The next day, I tried again. I spoke slowly and quietly. Sometimes I stopped in the middle of a sentence. Sometimes I made mistakes. Still, I continued. No one was watching. No one was laughing. For the first time, speaking did not feel dangerous. I began to practice every day. I listened to short stories and repeated the words softly. At first, it felt awkward. My pronunciation was not clear. My sentences were not smooth. But little by little, it became easier. I noticed small changes. Words came faster. My voice felt stronger. The fear did not disappear. It was still there, waiting. Sometimes my heart beat fast, even when I practiced alone. But something new appeared beside the fear. I felt curious. I wanted to see if I could improve more. That feeling gave me hope. Progress was slow. Some days felt good. Other days felt heavy again. Still, I did not stop. Each small step felt important. I realized that change did not need to be big. It only needed to continue. After some time, I noticed something surprising. I was no longer only afraid. I was also ready to try. The idea of speaking with others still scared me, but it no longer felt impossible. Quiet practice had opened a small door, and I felt ready to see what waited outside. Chapter 5. The First Real Conversation. One day, I faced a moment I could not avoid. Someone spoke to me and expected an answer. My heart started beating fast. My mind felt empty again. I wanted to stay silent like before, but something inside me told me to try. I spoke slowly. My voice was not strong. I searched for simple words. Some sentences were wrong. I stopped many times to think. I felt embarrassed and nervous. I waited for laughter or impatience. I expected the moment to become painful, but it did not happen. The other person waited calmly. They listened carefully. When I made a mistake, they did not laugh. They only smiled and helped me continue. The conversation was simple and short, but it did not feel scary anymore. I finished speaking, and nothing bad happened. After that moment, I felt something new, relief. The fear in my mind had been bigger than reality. I realized mistakes were not disasters. They were only part of speaking. People cared more about understanding than perfection. I thought about the conversation again and again that night. I understood that my fear had stopped me more than my ability. The problem was not speaking. The problem was believing I could not speak. This small experience changed how I saw myself. I was still nervous, but I was no longer hiding. I knew I could survive mistakes. That knowledge gave me quiet confidence. From that day, I wanted to try more. I began to speak whenever I had a chance. Each conversation felt a little easier. Fear was still present, but it no longer controlled me. For the first time, speaking felt possible, and I wanted to keep moving forward. Chapter 6. Failing again, but differently. After my first real conversation, I felt stronger. I believed things would become easy, but they did not. Some days were still very hard. Words disappeared when I needed them. My sentences broke in the middle. I forgot simple things I already knew. At first, the old fear returned. I felt the same embarrassment again. I wanted to stop speaking and return to silence. My mind told me that nothing had really changed. It said I was still not good enough. But something was different this time. I did not run away. I stayed in the moment. I tried again. When I made mistakes, I continued speaking. I noticed that failure no longer felt like the end. It felt uncomfortable, but it also felt normal. Every mistake showed me what I needed to improve. Slowly, my thinking began to change. Before, failure meant I should stop. Now, failure meant I was trying. I started to see progress in small ways. I could speak longer than before. I could recover after forgetting words. I felt less afraid of being wrong. Some conversations were still awkward. Some days I felt tired and frustrated, but I no longer saw mistakes as proof that I could not improve. They became part of the process. Each failure taught me something new. This new mindset gave me quiet strength. I understood that progress was not a straight line. Some days were good, some days were not. What mattered was continuing. Without realizing it, I was preparing for something bigger. Soon, a new opportunity would appear. It would test everything I had learned so far. This time, I would not face it as the silent boy I once was. Chapter 7. Helping someone else. One afternoon, a friend asked me for help. They wanted to practice English, and they asked me to explain some words. At first, I felt nervous. My mind said, "You are not ready. What if you make mistakes?" I hesitated, but I wanted to help, so I said yes. When we started, I spoke slowly. I chose simple words. I repeated sentences carefully. I watched my friend listen and try to repeat after me. At first, I noticed my mistakes. My pronunciation was not perfect. My sentences were short. But I continued, focusing on helping, not on being perfect. As I explained, something surprising happened. I realized how much I had changed. I remembered how scared I used to be. I used to avoid even one conversation. Now, I was speaking clearly and patiently. I could explain things, guide someone else, and correct mistakes without fear. Teaching forced me to slow down. I listened more. I thought before speaking. I repeated words carefully. I noticed small improvements in myself with each sentence I said. Fear was still there, but it had a new place. It became part of the process, not the limit. By the end of our session, I felt proud. My friend had learned new words. I had spoken for a long time. I had survived mistakes. I had grown without even realizing it. This moment changed how I saw myself. I was no longer only a learner. I could also be a guide. Helping others gave me confidence I never had before. It showed me a new path. Speaking was no longer only about my fear. It could be about helping, sharing, and making a difference. And that made everything feel meaningful. Chapter 8. Finding his voice. I started to speak more often. I joined conversations in class and with friends. At first, my sentences were still short. I sometimes paused to think, but each time I spoke, it became a little easier. My voice felt stronger. My fear felt smaller. People began to listen. They waited for my words. They asked me questions. I realized that my voice mattered. I could share ideas. I could explain simple thoughts. I could even make people laugh sometimes. I remembered the boy who stayed silent, the boy who hid behind fear. I thought about how long it took to get here. I felt proud. I felt relief. I knew that every small step, every mistake, every quiet practice had led me to this moment. Speaking started to feel natural. It was no longer scary. I did not worry about mistakes as much. I did not imagine laughter in my mind. I could focus on what I wanted to say, not on fear. My voice had become a part of me, not a threat. Sometimes, I looked around and smiled quietly to myself. I thought about the journey from fear to courage. I realized that speaking was more than using words. It was trusting myself. It was sharing a part of who I am. Each day, I felt more confident. Each conversation built strength. The boy who once stayed silent was still inside me, but now he was quiet in a good way. He reminded me of how far I had come. I knew that this was only the beginning. Finding my voice opened doors I had never imagined. I was ready to take the next step. Soon, my story would reach more people, and I would help others find their voices too. Chapter 9. From fear to teaching. I started teaching English to others who were afraid, just like I once was. When I saw their silence, I understood it immediately. I remembered the fear of speaking, the shaking hands, the empty mind, the heart that raced with worry. I knew that fear well. At first, I felt nervous. Teaching felt different from speaking for myself. I worried about mistakes and whether my students would understand. But then I remembered my own journey. I had been in their place. That thought gave me courage. I knew I could help. I focused on patience. I repeated words slowly. I explained small steps. I encouraged them to try again, even if they made mistakes. I smiled when they paused or stumbled. I celebrated small victories. Each tiny success mattered. I also focused on courage. I told them that mistakes were normal. I shared my story of silence and fear. I showed them that fear can be faced, step by step. Slowly, they started speaking. Slowly, I saw their confidence grow. Teaching became more than a job. It became a mission. I wanted every student to feel the same pride I felt when I found my voice. I wanted them to know that fear is not permanent, that courage grows when we try. Each lesson reminded me of my past. I remembered the boy who stayed silent for so long. I saw him in every student. But now, I also saw the change that is possible. Weakness could become strength. Fear could become purpose. I felt proud, not only of myself, but of the students I helped. Teaching showed me that my journey was valuable. My struggle was not wasted. My silence had taught me how to guide others, and that made every step I took meaningful. Chapter 10. The voice he almost lost. I often think about the boy I once was, the boy who stayed silent, the boy who feared every word. That boy almost lost his voice completely. Fear almost kept him from living fully. I remember how heavy silence felt, how small I felt in the world. Now things are very different. I speak freely, I teach others, I guide students who were once like me. Each time they speak, I see hope. Each small success reminds me of my journey. Silence has become confidence. Fear has become courage. I tell my students this: it is okay to feel unsure. It is okay to make mistakes. Every small attempt matters. Every word spoken is a victory. I remember the first time I spoke out loud. I remember how small it felt and how much it changed me. I understand that fear is real, but I also know that fear can be faced. One step at a time, one sentence at a time, one moment at a time. Change does not happen all at once. It begins with a single choice to try. Looking back, I am grateful for my struggle. I am grateful for the moments that scared me the most. They taught me patience, courage, and persistence. They gave me a voice that now reaches others. If you feel afraid, remember this: speaking begins with one word. One word leads to another. One word can change how you see yourself. Fear may visit, but it does not have to stay. Now I speak. Now I teach. And now I live fully. My voice was almost lost, but it was not. And I hope that by sharing my story, others will find the courage to speak too. Thank you for watching this story until the end. I hope you enjoyed it and practiced speaking along with me. Remember, learning takes time, and every small effort counts. If there were parts you did not understand, you can watch again and repeat the sentences aloud. Each time you practice, you get stronger and more confident. Speaking slowly and clearly will help you improve step by step. If this video was easy for you, write easy in the comments. If it was difficult, write hard. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. I upload new stories every day to help you listen, speak, and enjoy learning English.